Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning back to the channel. What I have for you guys today, I'll be showing you guys how to make some custom mud flaps. It's my buddy Tony's truck. You guys have seen it on some of my previous videos. Mud flaps are usually for, wide wheels, lifted trucks, anywhere where there's a big space right in here that doesn't provide any coverage for the cars behind you. It keeps you from knocking rocks or mud into the cars that are driving behind you on the road, possibly damaging their windshields. I'm sure a lot of you guys have already got a cracked windshield by somebody that's in the front that kicks a rock at you. Well, anyways, I mean, there's a lot of other reasons too, but what I'm doing today is making some custom mud flaps for this truck because he actually got pulled over and they gave him a citation for a fix-it ticket. So you guys know how that works. Put the mud flaps on, get it signed off, you get a slap on the wrist. So I'm gonna go ahead and I got some material already. I gotta figure out exactly where I want to mount these, how I want to make them, how far I want them to come down. You can go to almost any custom shop that deals with lifted trucks and they'll sell you a kit. The one that is right around the corner from me, they sell it for $312 out the door. Personally, I think that's super expensive. I mean, they are plexiglass and they are powder coated. So I mean, obviously the workmanship is there. It's just a lot to expend, So what I'm gonna be doing is a little bit different than the ones I'm used to seeing. I'm used to seeing the ones that are made with all flat bar, super adjustable, so they got tons of holes. I mean, they look really nice, but what I'll be doing is using square tube and flat bar. The square tube, I'm going to be putting it up there. I'm using probably about 3 or 4 inch sleeve of some 1 1/4 by 1 1/4 to slide in some 1 inch 1 by 1 square tube up and down, basically making it removable. Bringing the 1 by 1 straight down and over, and then putting the flat bar, welding the flat bar against there. Plexiglass mud flap, and then another piece of flat bar on the outside to sandwich it in. I will be making, obviously bolted onto the frame, but I'll be making sideways 2 different holes, one for a bolt, one for a pin. The reason for that is, since he goes to a lot of the truck meets and truck shows, we want to make them removable as easily as possible. So what I figured out was, if I put a bolt, that'll be for long term. If he's going to go on the road, if he's going to go on a trip or something and he wants to make sure they're not going anywhere, you make sure that bolt is nice and tight. At the same time, it's going to have a pin probably 2-3 inches away from that same bracket, and the pin is going to be used to be able to remove the mud flap. So if he's going to go to a show and he doesn't want to have the mud flaps, the night before he could take off the bolt. The pin is holding in the mud flaps. He gets to the show, takes off the mud flaps just by releasing the pin, getting back on the road, puts the mud flaps back on, throws the pin in place, and heads home. Once he's home, if he wants to bolt them down, bolt them down. So that's the theory behind it. That's what I'm going to try to get out, and I think that's a good idea. I mean, I've seen some that if you wanted to remove them, you'd be down there for 20 minutes trying to screw off all the bolts, and it's just kind of a nightmare. So especially if you're running last minute here and there, this way I think it'll be super fast, and I think you'll like it. So he wanted to paint them and all that, but I'm gonna just go ahead and spray them for him with spray paint, just because, in case he doesn't have any time to paint them anytime soon. The main purpose of getting them on this truck today is just so that he could have the ticket signed off. And obviously, if they're gonna sit here unprimered, unpainted, and they sit here for a couple of weeks even, they can start getting rusted. So we'll make sure we coat them with a little bit of gold paint to match the rest of his parts. I've seen a bunch of different looks, honestly. He probably has about, I want to say 22 inches, possibly 24 inches from the floor to the top, to the bottom, I mean to the bottom of the cladding. I measured a little bit, and I figured if we do it about 12 inches, that'll be nice and covered. The wheel, I gotta measure that and see exactly how wide it is. Obviously his rims are 14s, but I want to make sure I get full coverage. And yeah, guys, let's get to it. It should be a fairly easy project. Like I said, it's just basically creating some L brackets, welding in some flat bar, drilling some holes, a little bit of paint. All right, guys, so I'm under the truck trying to figure out exactly where my 1x1 is going to drop down from the frame. I have just a hair under 2 inches between the frame and the leaf spring, so I'm gonna do it through here, this little gap, 2.5 inches. Like I said, the bar I'm using to drop down is 1x1, so that's more than enough space. So I'll just kind of talk you guys over what I'm gonna do. I was originally gonna set the 1x1 over the 1/4 inch plate, weld that together, and put 2 bolts, you know, top to bottom on the 1/4 inch plate. But instead, just because I have, you know, just 2 inches of clearance, I'm gonna put the 1x1 next to the flat bar, and I'll weld that together inside and out, drill the 2 holes on the flat bar, bolt that down, and that should be more than fine. The flat bar is going to be dropping down just enough to clear here. In other words, the other 1x1 that's going to be at the bottom, creating the L, is going to come out from right around here straight outwards towards the outside of the truck. I need to measure the height of the frame so I can make a little sleeve, and I want to say this is probably around 5 inches. It's a little over 5 inches, so I'm going to cut it at 4 inches. I'm going to cut the sleeve at 4 inches. I'm going to go to the top of to where that cross member is at, this one. From the bottom of this cross member, I'm gonna measure downwards to see where my clearance would be for the tire. So let me see that. 14 inches to the bottom of the cladding, or the, you know, in other words, if it's a regular bed, it's just the bed. I call this cladding because this is a SS cover, so I don't know exactly what they refer to. I've seen people call it claddings and blah blah blah, so that's what I call it. So 14 inches. I'm gonna cut it at 13 inches just because I have 4 inches to play with up there, and I don't want it to be, I want it as close as possible to hug this lip. That way it's as high as it can be without touching. So I'm gonna cut that at 13 inches. I'm gonna measure from where the bar is gonna drop, right here, to the outside of the wheel, and see what that gives me. But what I'm gonna do is probably bring it to right about where this piece is at, right here. I think that's enough. And that measurement actually is 21 inches. All right, so let's get to cutting. All right, guys, so we said 4 inches. I'm gonna cut both pieces right off the bat. Go ahead and cut it at 14 actually, this one. So let me take you guys over this real quick. See how that's got really nice travel, and it's got a little bit of play, but that's where the pin and the bolt will kind of play its part. The little flat bar weld out to the side right here, 2 holes, bolt this down, 2 holes this way, 1 bolt, 1 pin, removable, put it back on. The mud flap will come out welded from here to here and then downwards. So that's the whole point of trying to get this section done. Alright guys, so I'm done kind of pre-drilling and cutting this section right here. This is where you bolt up here. Put your washers and your lock nut. I'm gonna use a nylon lock nut on this, and then so it'll be welded like that. And then this bottom one will have a pin. You can obviously bolt it to if you don't plan on removing them all the time or often. So that's how the setup will be, just like that, up against the frame. This will be welded like that. Like I was mentioning, take off the bolt if you're just gonna go to a show or for whatever reason. Take off the pin, remove it, mud flap comes off. I just kind of noticed something though, that it might be a pain in the ass. Little things that you don't notice ahead of time. So make sure you don't, if something is that tight, make sure you don't put, because this is a 3/8 bolt with the big, the head on this is probably just over 1/4 inch. So you can see how that would be in the way of the pin coming off and both of these bolt heads matching up. That would definitely be a pain in the ass. So I think I'm gonna have to end up welding them up a different, kind of like that. That kind of sucks. I wish I had paid attention to that, but it's not a big deal. I mean, I could remake some of these. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna remake them. Just because I don't like that. It'll be welded like that. It looks kind of ugly. So yeah, that's one thing you guys gotta always pay attention to. I should have caught that, but luckily I caught it before I welded the stuff. So I'm gonna make a new bracket with a bolt hole a little bit lower than this and a bolt hole right in the middle. That way none of these heads are in each other's way. So I'll get to that. All right guys, so I put the bracket up there with a magnet just to kind of make sure I take an accurate measurement. That's how it sticks down from in between the leaf spring and the frame. And according to my measurements, I have to cut that bracket at 20 inches just so that it's on the inside of the wheel but on the outside of the thread pattern. 20 inches. And I'm thinking I'm going to make the PlexiGlass between 12 and 13 inches. So now that I have the brace, well, it's not up there yet, but I'll weld that piece up here 1 by 1. Then I'll weld the flat bar next to it, but it's going to be 1 inch flat bar, enough to fit the 4 bolts. And then on the opposite side, in other words on this side, I'm going to put a 2 inch flat bar, so it covers up that 1 inch flat bar and the 1 by 1 square tube. So yeah, let's get to cutting the rest of the pieces and welding stuff. All right guys, so let me explain to you guys what I'm going to be doing. I changed the design a little bit. Reason being, I ran out of the 1 by 1. I thought I had enough and I didn't. So I'm going to end up going back with the 2 by 2, or the 2 inch flat bar. It's 1/4 inch. This is a 20 inch piece, so it's actually pretty strong. I doubt that this will fold. So this is what I'll be doing. Removable piece bolted onto the frame. It's a 14 inches from the top to the bottom, 1 by 1, 1/8 inch. Welding the 2 by 2. Why do I keep saying 2 by 2? Welding the 2-inch flat bar. Might put a little gusset. I probably will. A little 1-inch gusset right there in the corner, just because I like gussets. Plexiglass will sit right here. This will sandwich the plexiglass. 4 bolts. Done. All right, guys. So I just got done cutting the plexiglass. I ended up cutting it 12 by 12. I think that's a good size for that application on that truck. Like I said, it's not that tall, so it doesn't have to be. These don't have to be super long. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and match up the steel with up here and drilling the holes. First, I'm gonna drill the holes, pilot holes on the steel. Then I'm gonna come back through here and sandwich this and drill through those same pilot holes so it drills through the acrylic. All right, guys. So now that I've pre-drilled a pilot hole on all four of these holes, I've sandwiched the acrylic or the plexiglass right between both of the pieces of steel. So that pilot hole, now I can just punch right straight through with the drill with absolutely no issues. Once I do that to all 4 sides, I could technically, I'm attempting to do this with one hand actually. Yeah, see, super easy. So once I do all 4 sides, this will be ready to drill out to 3. I'm doing a 1/4 inch on these actually. So I'm gonna drill these out to 1/4 inch. And I'm gonna do them separately. The reason why is because I don't wanna put too much tension on this as I'm doing it, because just the pilot holes is the only thing I'm drilling together. The 1/4 inch holes, I'm gonna do them separately, but they'll all line up. So let me do that to both pieces. Then I'll start welding this bracket into the other brace, and we'll be ready to paint. All right, guys, we're ready to start welding these brackets onto these brackets. So just make sure before you weld, make sure you get these in the right direction. These have to be sideways. In other words, facing up while this is facing flat, you know, or down. That way you don't accidentally weld them the opposite, and then you have to re-drill holes on that. Also, one thing to remember, you always have a left and a right. I should have mentioned that before, but don't accidentally get caught with 2 rights or 2 lefts. So you don't drill them identical. You have to do one facing forward and one facing backwards, because there's a left and a right. I don't know if you guys understand what I mean. So ultimately, I mean, you can still use them on Mudflaps. You can still use them the same way, except that on one of them you'll have the brace, this bracket on the outside, and on the other one you'll have it on the inside if you accidentally screw that up. So now I'm gonna weld this together. I'm gonna use a 45 to make sure that 90, I'm sorry, to make sure that everything is squared. Weld them in place. Put a little gusset right here, something small, and they will be ready to. Once I weld that piece on there, also they'll be ready to bolt onto the truck. All right, guys. So we are pretty much done with the fab work on these. All I got to do now is just primer them and paint them and bolt them in. It's pretty hot, but I welded it all the way through. Sanded down the backs. Welded all the way through on this side. On that side, I'm going to leave the weld just as it is, just because I don't want to sand it down and then have a little bit of a weak point, so I'm gonna leave that alone. So yeah, guys, let me primer them up real quick and give them some paint and start putting them on. All right, guys, so I got the parts all primered up, waiting for them to dry. Probably give them a few minutes, about 20 more minutes. All right, guys, so we just got done painting them. It's hard for you guys to see it, but so we're in the shade, but let me try to move this piece out. Nice and gold. So we're just gonna give it about a few minutes to dry up, and then we're gonna go ahead and start trying to mount them. All right guys, so I kind of jumped the gun a little bit. I'm at the full install of the right side. Let me show you guys what it looks like. Bolted up. I wasn't able to fit a washer on the top bolt that goes sideways, but that's fine because it snugs up pretty good. We ended up putting it right at 5 inches roughly. I think that's better. 7 inches was too far back. That's how it looks. I think it looks good. It's not too small and it's not too big. Let me show you guys a little side view. I got probably about 3/8 of an inch of a gap, so that's good. It shouldn't be touching anywhere. It's got a little bit of play up and down and sideways. That's mostly because we have that pin that's locked in there. If we were to put that as a bolt and tighten the heck out of it, this would not move. But you know, we need it to be removable, so that's, like I said earlier, that's one of the easiest ways to be able to get something like that off. And more often than ever, when you have something removable, stuff tends to move a little bit. But that, I mean, that's an easy fix, like I said, if it's going to be something that's permanent on here. But yeah, let me give you guys a little bit closer look from behind. So I'm going to move forward to the other one and try to finish that out because he needs to go, and hopefully you guys got the idea. So all right guys, so we just got done installing this side also. Now I'm putting on this the plexiglass on this side too, so I got to match up the holes, make sure I have them all identical. This is close, but I don't think that's it. That one looks perfect right there. I think this is it, but there's one hole that's off, so I'll just re-drill it. We didn't end up putting the matting in between just because it was going to make it so fat and ugly that it would look awkward. As opposing to the steel with the plexiglass in between, it looks nice and clean, so we're just leaving it like this. Make sure you don't take the stuff off beforehand because you could almost do almost anything and it'll scratch it. So if you want it to look nice and clean, you kind of leave it alone. And I have lock nuts back here. I ended up using the nylon ones. The reason for this is because I just want to do hand tighten on this. Well, hand tighten and then just enough for the lock washer to tighten. Because I don't want to put too much pressure on here, which would cause a lot of tension on the plexiglass. So literally just enough to where you could feel that it's not fully tightened, but it's nice and tight, so that it doesn't come undone on its own. And you are good to go. I just got to put one more nut back here because I got to get the little small washer, but that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, it's already done. What I did to match this plate, we ended up using this cross member right here to measure exactly the same distance to the other side. It's a very tight squeeze right there, so but you know, ultimately it was okay. I should have let the paint dry a little bit longer because we got a little bit of scuff marks on it. but ultimately it looks good. I think once that dries, I left a little bit of black on here. It should wipe off. We matched them up. As you guys can see, the gaps are almost identical. This is probably a hair over 3/8, but to be honest with you, it's not enough to even mess with. It's literally, you would never notice. So let me finish just tightening up that bolt, and you're gonna double check everything, make sure all the bolts are nice and tight, and that's it. Alright guys, well that was it. It took me probably around 3 to 4 hours roughly to get the whole project from beginning to the end. Had about an hour break in between, but like I said, I think the only thing is we should have kind of let the paint dry a little bit longer, just so that it's 100% dry. But hope you guys got the idea on how to make those. And again, that's the generic way to do it. You could obviously make taller and longer and wider flaps. I just wanted something that he could get the ticket checked out. He likes them enough. He says he might even just leave them on there. So if he wants to leave them on there, honestly, I would recommend taking off that pin, putting another bolt, and then tighten them up really good. Yeah guys, I think they don't look ridiculous on this truck, honestly, and they're minimal. They look very, 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 I think adequate is the word I'm thinking. So yeah, hope you guys liked the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I have a lot more videos on the way, and turn on your notifications so you guys get alerts, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching.